Hello there, you're watching World News. I'm Mariam Zian, and these are the headlines. Trump threatens powerful strikes on Tehran after attacks on U.S. bases and facilities in Jordan, while media reports reveal Iran rejected Oman's proposal for joint administration of the Strait of Hormuz. Also coming up, UN warns of rapid deterioration in the occupied West Bank. The United Nations condemns escalating settler violence, while the Arab group stresses that the Zionist entity has no sovereignty over East al-Quds. And renewed international support for the Sahrawi cause, Ireland voices concern over the conditions of Sahrawi prisoners. Britain's Algerian UK organization warns of trials without legal defense, and the Scientific Forum in Algeria calls for the implementation of international legitimacy in Western Sahara. Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened a powerful strike against Iran. His remarks, reported by Fox News on Wednesday, came after the U.S. military said it intercepted several ballistic missiles launched by Tehran toward American bases in Jordan. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced late Tuesday that its aerospace force carried out a missile attack targeting a U.S. airbase at the headquarters of the U.S. Central Command in Jordan. According to Iranian media citing the IRGC, the attack was a response to hostile actions by the U.S. military.
In response to the aggressive actions of the U.S. military, the courageous fighters of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force targeted the U.S. military's airbase and Central Command headquarters in Jordan with multiple ballistic missiles. As long as threats against the Islamic Republic of Iran continue, and as long as the unlawful and malicious actions of the U.S. forces against our interests persist, the resistance will continue. U.S. officials must cease their threats and their unlawful interference against our interests.
The U.S. military said Tuesday it intercepted several ballistic missiles launched by Iran toward American forces in the Middle East, describing the incident as a surprise attack attempt by Tehran. A statement from U.S. Central Command did not specify the location targeted, but said all incoming Iranian missiles were successfully intercepted. And Jordan's armed forces said Wednesday that its air defenses intercepted and shot down 5 missiles launched from Iran as hostilities resumed in the Middle East after several days of relative calm. The military spokesman said Jordan's air defense systems detected and intercepted the missiles before they reached their intended targets inside the kingdom. Saudi Arabia announced Wednesday that its armed forces, in coordination with the U.S. Central Command, carried out precision strikes against Iran-backed groups in Iraq. Saudi Defense Ministry spokesman Turki al-Maliki said in a post on X that the strikes targeted groups accused of launching attacks on oil facilities in the kingdom's eastern province.
The Saudi Armed Forces, in coordination with the U.S. Central Command, launched strikes today, Wednesday, by launching specific targeted strikes against targets belonging to those militias present on the territory of the Republic of Iraq and linked to attacks on oil facilities in the kingdom. The kingdom affirms that it does not seek escalation, but will respond to any aggression against it.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Wednesday that the overnight U.S.-Saudi strikes on positions of Iraq's popular mobilization forces, which include Iran-backed armed factions, were carried out in coordination with the Iraqi government. Trump made the remarks in an interview with Fox News. And Reuters, citing a senior Iranian official, reported Wednesday that Tehran rejected Oman's proposal for a joint regional administration of the Strait of Hormuz, insisting the inbound shipping lane and part of the outbound lane remain under Iranian control. The official said only Iran and Oman have the right to determine the strait's arrangements and rejected any role for other countries. And China has called on all parties involved in the Red Sea to iron out their divergences through dialogue and de-escalate tensions, stressing respect for the sovereignty and security of regional countries and the need to safeguard international shipping. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning said Wednesday that Beijing is closely monitoring developments and emphasizing the importance of jointly protecting the security of international waterways. Iran has renewed its criticism of U.S. and Zionist presence in the Middle East. Addressing the UN Security Council in New York on the situation in the Middle East, Iran's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ghulam Hossein Tehgani, said U.S. and Zionist allegations against Iran are part of a long-standing hostile policy aimed at achieving political and military objectives, concealing unlawful activities and justifying the destabilizing U.S. military presence in the Middle East.
The United States act of aggression against Iran's nuclear facilities forms part of the long-standing hostile policy pursued by the United States and the Israeli regime against Iran. These allegations are intended to advance their political and military objectives, conceal their illegal actions and malign activities in the region, and justify the destabilizing U.S. military presence there.
In the same context, the Iranian ambassador to the United Nations described Iran's actions in the Middle East as defensive and lawful, blaming illegal U.S. actions for destabilizing the region and undermining the security of maritime navigation.
We reaffirm that all measures taken by Iran are defensive, necessary, and consistent with international law. The root causes of the current situation are clear. Through its continued unlawful actions, the United States poses a serious threat to regional stability, freedom of navigation, and security of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. The Islamic Republic of Iran has exercised and will continue to exercise its inherent right to self-defense in accordance with Article 51 of the Charter of the United Nations to protect its people, defend its sovereignty, and preserve its territorial integrity.
Moving on to the Palestinian file, the United Nations has warned of the rapidly deteriorating situation in the occupied West Bank, condemning escalating settler violence against Palestinians. Addressing the UN Security Council on Tuesday, UN Deputy Special Coordinator for the Middle East Peace Process, Ramiz Alakbarov, said the recent surge in violence has caused civilian casualties, displacement, and damage to property. The United Nations on Wednesday condemned the escalating violence by Zionist settlers and the continued annexation of land in the occupied West Bank, 2 years after the International Court of Justice declared the Zionist occupation of the West Bank illegal. UN Human Rights Office spokeswoman Ravina Shamdasani said in a statement that settler attacks and the expansion of settlements and outposts have reached unprecedented levels. The Arab group at the United Nations reaffirmed that the Zionist entity has no sovereignty over occupied East al-Quds or its Islamic and Christian holy sites. Speaking before the UN Security Council, Jordan's UN envoy Walid Khalid Ubaidad condemned the Zionist escalation at Al-Aqsa Mosque, repeated settler incursions, restrictions on Palestinian access to holy sites, and measures aimed at altering the historical and legal status of occupied East al-Quds.
The group strongly rejects all Israeli policies and statements calling for the annexation of part of Gaza or the displacement of the Palestinian people, as they violate international law and undermine efforts to end the war and preserve the unity of the Palestinian territories, the West Bank, including East al-Quds and Gaza. The occupied West Bank is witnessing dangerous dangerous escalation, marked by settlement expansion, land confiscation, discriminatory legislation, settler violence, and attempts to annexation. In violation of international law, the ICJ Advisory Opinion and Security Council Resolution 2334. In recent days, settler attacks backed by the Israeli army have intensified across the West Bank, killing and injuring Palestinian civilians and forcibly displacing communities from their lands and homes.
And former Director of Media and Public Relations at Bab al-Rahma in Al-Aqsa Mosque, Abdullah Ma'ruf, said the Zionist occupation has taken the first steps toward ending the status quo at the mosque. Speaking to Al-24 News on Wednesday, Ma'ruf said the violations committed in recent days were unprecedented, adding that the occupation had effectively begun testing the full implementation of what it calls the temporal and spatial division of Al-Aqsa Mosque. The occupied West Bank is witnessing a dangerous escalation marked by expanding settlement activity and increasing settler attacks. The Wall and Settlement Resistance Commission said the Zionist entity established 11 new settlement outposts in the occupied West Bank in just 3 days. Nabil Khazini has the report.
This is the agricultural heartland of the northern West Bank, land that has sustained Palestinian families for generations. Today, it is a front line. The flashpoint occurred when villagers confronted thousands of Zionist settlers who attacked residential homes with the aim of driving Palestinians from their land. Local Palestinians say they face repeated threats while tending their land, with access to agricultural fields becoming increasingly dangerous amid growing violence.
I'm patient and will be patient. Like the poet said once, I will be patient until patience runs out. And I will be patient until God will allow things to happen. And I will be patient until all patient people are aware that I had more bitter patience. But after this, after what is bitter patience, what comes? Comes the explosion. We will stay in this stand and we will never leave here. We have been always farming it. As you can see, every year I farm it. We are deeply rooted here.
According to the United Nations, more than 1,330 violent incidents involving Zionist settlers have been documented across the territory since January. That is an average of 6 attacks every single day. For months, local monitors and international human rights organizations have warned that what is happening is not spontaneous friction, but an organized wave of intimidation designed to drive Palestinian communities off their land.
In the past week, the escalating violence in the West Bank has resulted in civilian casualties, displacement, damage to property, and growing insecurity across affected communities. Israeli settler attacks against Palestinian communities' homes, places of worship, and civilian infrastructure have persisted at alarming levels.
The aftermath of the violence has extended well beyond the immediate attacks. Road closures, military checkpoints, and large-scale arrest operations have further restricted movement, disrupting access to schools, hospitals, workplaces, and farmland. Palestinian residents say these measures have deepened an already severe humanitarian situation, leaving many communities increasingly isolated.
2 Palestinians were killed and several others wounded in Zionist airstrikes targeting civilians in Gaza City and Khan Yunis on Wednesday. Medical sources said 1 person was killed in a drone strike in Gaza City's Al Rimal neighborhood, while another one was killed and several others injured in a separate drone attack on civilians in the Al Mawasi area of Khan Yunis. The Zionist occupation continued its attacks on southern Lebanon on Wednesday, carrying out military incursions and intermittent artillery shelling in violation of the framework agreement. Lebanese media reported incursions into Ait al-Jabal and Hadatha, artillery shelling near Nabatiya, Al-Fawqa, and the demolition and burning of homes in Al-Mansouri, Al-Qantara, and continued over flights across southern Lebanon and Beirut. In other news, the Irish government has reaffirmed its support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination in line with international law and UN resolutions, while expressing concern over the conditions of Sahrawi political prisoners in Moroccan prisons. Irish Foreign Minister Ellen McEntee also recalled Ireland's 2022 UN recommendations urging Morocco to end the targeting of human rights defenders, journalists, and activists in Western Sahara. And Britain's Algerian UK organization has expressed concern over ongoing criminal trials in occupied La'youn, Western Sahara, saying defendants are being tried without effective legal representation. The organization said the proceedings violate the right to defense and a fair trial, citing cases heard and prison sentences issued during a lawyer strike that left defendants without legal counsel.
Justice cannot be achieved when the defendant is denied the fundamental right to defense, and any judicial proceedings that fail to guarantee legal representation remain a serious concern with regard to the protection of human rights and the rule of law.
Participants at a conference in Algeria said the only just solution to the Western Sahara issue is a free and fair UN-backed referendum, allowing the Sahrawi people to exercise their right to self-determination. They also called for expanding MINURSO's mandate to monitor human rights, protect Sahrawi sovereignty over natural resources, and strengthen international accountability for violations in the occupied territories. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune to offer condolences over the victims of wildfires in Algeria. The two leaders also reviewed bilateral relations, discussed developments in Palestine and the Middle East, the Gulf, and Libya, stressed the need for peaceful solutions to regional conflicts, and agreed to meet soon. Algerian President Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune received on Wednesday the Speaker of the National People's Assembly, Khalida Bouftesh. A statement from the Algerian presidency said the meeting was attended by the president's advisor for political affairs and relations with youth, civil society, and political parties, Mustafa Sayah. Speaking after the meeting, National People's Assembly Speaker Khalida Bouftesh said she had the honor of receiving President Tebboune's guidance on the next phase and the need to intensify efforts and strengthen coordination among all state institutions in the service of the nation and its citizens.
تشرفت اليوم بأنني حظيت باستقبال من قبل رئيس الجمهورية السيد عبد المجيد تبون.
I'm honored today to be welcomed by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, where he congratulated me on the election of the President of the National People's Assembly as the first woman to take this position in the history of independent Algeria. I was also honored to listen to the supreme directives of the President of the Republic about the next stage and what it requires from the cooperation and efforts between the various state institutions in the service of the homeland and its citizens. I take this opportunity to reaffirm the determination of the National People's Assembly to continue working responsibly and in accordance with what contributes to achieving the goals set by the President of the Republic in the framework of a victorious new Algeria.
The election of Khalida Bouftesh as Speaker of Algeria's National People's Assembly has drawn criticism of French far-right media after some outlets falsely claimed she belongs to an Islamist party in Algeria. Mara Blauer has the story.
Once again, France's far-right media machine has laid bare the extent of its hostility toward anything Algerian. The election of a woman to lead Algeria's People's National Assembly for the first time in the history of independent Algeria triggered a media frenzy, as outlets aligned with the Bolloré media empire rushed to distort the story instead of reporting its historic significance. Rather than highlighting the election of Algeria's first female Speaker of Parliament, Le Figaro, one of the flagship publications within the Bolloré media empire, falsely portrayed Khalida Bouftesh as belonging to an Islamist party. replacing facts with ideological narratives instead of recognizing the significance of the milestone. The latest misstep by France's far-right media, still weighed down by its colonial obsession and historical complexes, has also exposed the contradiction at the heart of its claim to defend women's rights whenever the issue concerns the southern shore of the Mediterranean. Hostility toward Algeria continues to override the very principles these outlets claim to uphold, turning parts of France's media landscape into a breeding ground for hired propagandists and ideological extremists.
The
latest media campaign has gone beyond distortion and misrepresentation. It comes as Algeria continues to expand its strategic partnerships under President Abdelmajid Tebboune, from Rome to Berlin, from Lisbon to Madrid, and extending to Ankara, Ljubljana, and Brussels, following a diplomatic course independent of pressure from Paris. The reaction surrounding Boufdash's election reflects more than media bias. It underscores the growing frustration within France's far-right establishment over Algeria's expanding international partnerships and increasingly independent diplomatic trajectory, revealing an enduring obsession with everything related to Algeria.
In other news, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Tuesday that Russian President Vladimir Putin no longer holds the initiative in the war in Ukraine. In an interview with Fox News during a visit to Washington to meet U.S. President Donald Trump, Zelensky said Russia is losing 30,000 soldiers a month, calling the toll unsustainable while accusing Putin of refusing to end the war.
First of all,
since the beginning of the war, when Putin said he would occupy us in 2 or 3 days, we have built a major military technology industry. We now have 500 companies with very advanced technologies, and our soldiers are on the front line. Putin is now losing 30,000 soldiers every month. I mean, those are huge losses, very significant losses. As President Trump says, there are tremendous losses, yet he still does not want to stop this war. So now the initiative is no longer in Putin's hands. And that is the main thing that has changed.
And finally, rescue teams in Japan continued searching Wednesday for survivors who may be trapped beneath the rubble of a shopping center in the country's southwest after a powerful earthquake killed at least 13 people. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said the magnitude 7.01 or 7.1 earthquake, which struck Kumamoto Prefecture on Kyushu Island on Tuesday, has claimed 13 confirmed lives. She added that authorities have confirmed extensive damage, including casualties, collapsed buildings, fires, and damage to roads.
Regarding the Kumamoto earthquake, as of 8:30 a.m. local time today, 13 deaths have been confirmed, along with extensive damage, including injuries, collapsed buildings, fires, and damage to roads and other infrastructure. I extend my deepest condolences to the victims and their bereaved families, and my heartfelt sympathies to everyone affected by this disaster.
The end of our newscast. Thanks for watching and have a great night.